At the back end of last year, 2022, Dr. David Clark and his disclosure team came across a photograph that was thought to be missing or not even existed for some 32 years. This is the famous Calvine UFO. Now, over the last few months, UFO researchers, including myself, have gone into a lot of detail and published quite a few articles and documentaries and videos, website blogs about the details within this particular case, how it came about and how the coming about of the photograph took place. So putting that aside, there's plenty of information out there for you to look at, but just a brief summary of how things appertained and as to where we are now, and declaring, could this possibly be the hoax of the century? After 30 years of speculation, a once thought lost image of a daylight UFO was discovered in the safekeeping of an ex-RAF press officer. The infamous Calvine object had only ever been seen on a very dark photocopy of a fax that was sent to the MOD by the Scottish Daily Record for evaluation. It was claimed that the image was captured by hikers in the Pitlochry region of the Scottish Highlands late one summer's evening in 1990. 6 shots are said to have been captured, and the roll of film was developed by the newspaper. The image has ended up with the MOD, who after their evaluation said they sent them back to the newspaper, and the newspaper claimed they never received them, and the film, some photograph, was never seen again. Enter Dr. David Clark and his disclosure team. David Clark's based at Sheffield and Hallam University. He's a senior lecturer in journalism and folklore. He's also one of the keenest UFO researchers you'll ever come across. He's actually been the custodian of the MOD UFO files and been in the release of those particular papers and documents over the last few years that have been put out into the public domain. Now, researchers believe that the photograph shows a secret military stealth craft. Some believe it shows a flying saucer of some description. However, 33 years have gone past and we've seen nothing like this craft, nothing that looks like it or performs like the craft was claimed to at the time of the sighting. The objects claimed to have hovered silently for 10 minutes before shooting off upwards at speed, again without a sound. Recently, it's been suggested that the object was actually an inflatable target covered with stealth material for testing. It's thought that perhaps this thing was tethered below the hillside where the photograph was taken, so unable to see the actual equipment that tethered the giant balloon. Then it's thought that perhaps maybe the tether broke and this thing shot off of its own accord, blown on the wind and taken out to sea, never to be seen again. Or in fact, it could have even been released to test the capabilities of the radar on the alleged RAF airplanes that were seen in the area at the time. But think about it. A tethered object, yes, it would offer silently. It would just stay there, no sound at all. And if it was released, it would escape upwards at great speed, without a sound at all. In March 2023, the Scottish Daily Record, who were the newspaper where the film was originally sent for processing, evaluation, with the idea of running the story as a major news story. They dropped the story for some reason after the debacle with the photos not coming back, etc., etc. There's a lot of background on the fact that the editor of the newspaper at the time, Endel Laird, is no longer with us, so he can't be questioned. Actually sat on the denotice committee, and that could have had something to do with not releasing the story at the time. But in March 2023, the same Scottish Daily Record, the newspaper who originally handled the film in 1990, published this photograph. This is Kevin Russell, a young man in his early 20s in 1990. Mr. Russell is the elusive photographer. He's never come forward to talk about his alleged sighting while he worked as a porter at the Pitlochry Hydro Hotel. Now, the image was supplied to the paper by a colleague from 1990 who remembered Mr. Russell talking about the sighting at the time, but is yet to come forward. Now, the Calvine area is a stunning part of the Scottish Highlands. The photograph that you're looking at now is a picture of Loch Erocti. It's hard to say this. Erocti. It's somewhat 21 miles away from the Pitlochry Hydro Hotel where Kevin Russell worked. Now, the story goes that Kevin and a colleague were out for an evening hike and that travelled out into the Highlands. 20 minutes in a car. It's not too far away, is it, from where he was based? Some rumours came out that they'd gone out there for other means, i.e. poaching and what have you. So people automatically jump at thinking, what, they're poaching for deer? Are they poaching for salmon? Are they poaching for sheep? Whatever. But this particular lake, which, as I say, 21 miles away from where they were, is a fishing lake. It doesn't have salmon in it. It has perch, it has pike, but you do need to be licensed to fish it. So perhaps the guys were out there going for a bit of, late evening fishing. This is where they were when they allegedly just came across the object. It didn't fly into view. They either turned a corner or traversed a hillside, and the thing was there looking at them, hovering silently in the evening sky. They claimed that at the time that this diamond-shaped craft was hovering silently for some 10 minutes before realising he had a camera in his backpack, took it out, shot 6 exposures off, and this thing then shot off vertically, again silently, rising into the sky and out of view. Much research had been carried out by Sheffield and Hallam University's Dr. David Clarke, as we see here, and his disclosure team. David's highly respected subject researcher was always never sure whether the photograph was real, a real object, or just a clever hoax. But obtaining the photograph after 30 years, when he came across the retired desk officer, Mr. Craig Lindsay, who told him, well, yeah, actually, I kept a copy of the photograph in my desk and just been waiting 30 years for somebody to ask me about it. He was pretty sure then that this was some military experiment or some stealthy aircraft, and started putting the hoax theory on the back burners. But some theorists suggested that this was indeed a clever hoax. And let's think about it, like the surgeon's photograph of the Loch Ness Monster that fooled the world for years and years. Turned out that this, in fact, was just a small model floating on a lake. Originally, I thought this was just a wild idea. I was on the stealth craft panel for a long, long time. And still am, in some respects. Now look again at this image of Loch Erocti. There's a small island to the left-hand side of the image. You see it, it's slightly misty there. It's got quite an unusual shape, hasn't it? There are indeed similarities in this shape and the Calvine object. If we look closely, you can see even the line of the shadow on the underside is a line of shadow on the top side of the lake object, but that's easily resolved when we actually invert the image and get the shadows in the right place. All of a sudden, we're starting to see something that looks quite similar to the Calvine object. Take into account I only had one image of the lake showing that island, and it actually came from a calendar that was produced of the Highlands. So with more images, it will be much easier to do more conclusions. But if we look into the distance on the far side of the object, then we can see trees and a tree line on the shoreline of the loch. So I believe it was that side of the loch where the photograph was actually taken, if this is what we're looking at as the object. So we do have trees in the actual image of the photograph, of the print that we've got, which sort of backs up that idea. So when you overlay the two images together, the right-hand side one just shows one below the other, the sepia tone, and then the sort of phony coloured object is the Calvine object. But then on the left-hand side of the screen, if you look closely, there's been no tweaking, there's been no manipulation with the actual ratios of the craft. These are pure cut and paste. It overlays nicely on top of the island. And the thing that does intrigue me somewhat is the left-hand side of the diamond shape is slightly elongated compared to the right-hand side. And when you overlay the two items together, then that's exactly what you see, that these things do fit on top of each other. So could this be the reason for Kevin Russell keeping silent all these years? Because it was a hoax or a prank. It was meant to fool the gullible public, when in fact it's fooled military, security, and experts around the world for years and years and years. Okay, so I heard all the pro-UFO labbies shouting, throwing carrots at me, throwing cabbages at me, rotten tomatoes, boo hiss. What about the aircraft? Well, yeah, it's suggested that this is actually somebody in a boat on the lake. What's he doing in a boat? Well, we said earlier, Locharockty doesn't have any famed Scottish salmon stocks, but fishing is by licence, and the loch's a favourite for perch and the more boisterous pike. And fishermen love pike fishing in boats. You know, when you get hold of a good-sized pike on your line and you're in a boat, it'll pull the boat along. It'll take you for a ride for a while. So it's not unreasonable to suggest that we could be looking at the island in the distance and a man on a boat and the fencers just defending the tree line that we see on that opposite side of the lake. It's not the first time the world's been fooled for years, only to find that there was a mundane answer that's been staring them in the face. One such case was this one. Lee Hansen was a professional photographer of the Navy, and he filmed the famous Catalina UFO on 16mm film. The film shows the UFO gently floating across the sky, keeping on a track and going behind the mountains there. It appears to be, a circular disc-like object, the sun glinting off the top of it, and for years and years and years, this was the best daylight UFO footage that the world had ever seen and ever been captured. It's still touted as genuine on YouTube channels today. If you look at them and look at the original, you can see that they've messed about with the speed of the thing and titivated it up a little bit and interfered, shall we say. But one thing I remember from years and years ago, and I actually found the programme, it was one of the finest objective TV programmes on the subject for me that's ever been made. It's only 25 minutes long, and I've put a link to it at the end of this presentation so you can actually watch it for yourself. But this was Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious Worlds. And they used this piece of footage as one of their highlights of the programme, and then, in their words, decided to do some analysis with it. Well, it was given to Dr. Robert Nathan at the Jet Propulsion Lab way back in some analysis that the UFO nuts just ignore, don't even talk about. But look at this. Computers back in 1980 were big, but Nathan was based at the Jet Propulsion Lab, and believe you me, they had a big computer. Scanning the 16mm film frame by frame, he was able to ask the computer to average out the frames, like astronomy photographers do with the stacking software that you can do nowadays. It does it in a matter of moments on your computer. If you've got 50 images, it layers one on top of the other, picks out all the perfections it can find within each photograph, puts them together, and gives you a cracking image. And that's the way the rings of Saturn, the features of Mars are photographed by amateur astronomers. It's still very difficult, through the shake and the haze of the atmosphere of the Earth to get a photograph that's stable and still. But by using stacking, it can take the best bits out of each photograph and give you an image that is a true representation of what you're actually looking at. Now, run through the computer, it didn't take too long for Robert Nathan to come up with the fact that what he was seeing flying over the islands was actually a small aeroplane. I've suggested it was a Cessna. The thing that does peeve me a little bit is that Lee Hansen, who was this professional photographer and filmmaker working in the Navy, his eyesight would have far more resolution than the 16mm film he was shooting on. He couldn't recognise a Cessna in his flight path in front of him. Well, he was flying in a helicopter taking the film, and he thought he could see a UFO. But when the work's done on it, I think you'll agree that you look very carefully, and sorry, the quality of the images are from a quite a low resolution version of the documentary that was on YouTube. But you can see that we're looking at a small aircraft. On a personal note, though, I'd like to think that Kevin Russell did indeed capture some exotic experiment on film. I don't think we're looking at alien technology. I don't think we're looking at a UFO. I do think we're looking at something military. But it's something we've not seen the like of. 33 years have passed, and we've still not seen anything with the capabilities and the characteristics of this particular object. So if it's a hoax, come forward, Kevin. Tell us how I did it. It's come a long way in the last 12 months, but I don't think it's too far away from a conclusion nowadays. We just need Kevin Russell to come forward. If you know him, if you know where he is, drop us a line, post it on the internet. He'll be treated with respect, and he'll probably get a medal for the work that he's done over the years in keeping a lot of UFO researchers busy in the background, and in the last 9-10 months, as busy as hell. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed that. If you click the link at the bottom there, you can you can watch the full documentary of Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World on UFOs, and there's some good cases in there. Enjoy.